Happy midday, everyone. Happy midday, because it's not quite afternoon and we've just finished morning. I know that's probably not going to be the same for everyone. Anyway, welcome back to the Pride of All Europe Daily Podcast. We're in partnership with the Mystery Shirt Club. They can be found at themysteryshirtclub.com, and you can grab one of their many mystery boxes. So mysterious, we don't know what's in them either. But anyway, we're going to be doing a little thing at the end. If you stay tuned to the end, or at least come back, I will be asking a question for you. I'm winning one. I think you can only enter it once. You can't do multiple, and you'll see why at the end. So you'll have to write in the comments, not in the live chat, after the show's finished. All right. I'm joined by some great guests today. I'm waiting for one more to come on shortly. Jamie, Benny, you were on with me the other week, boys. Good to see you again. Just a few things I want to touch on first. I know I spoke to you about it the other week. Romelu Lukaku, obviously, he scored 2 goals yesterday. Very good form in Italy at the moment. Lots of talk about, as always, should United have sold him and all this. But we're kind of talking backstage, weren't we, Jamie? I feel that I think he just suits the Italian league a lot more. And I think, obviously, even though you don't play with your sort of national team too much, he's obviously going to have a good rapport with a lot of those players. And I think that's why, this is no discredit to him at all. He is a good player, but I think he sort of plays better in a slower league. And then when he's with his national team, he's as I said, he's got a good rapport with those players. But yeah, what are your thoughts on him, Jamie? Obviously, 2 goals yesterday. Probably a good bet for him to maybe be top scorer in the Euros. But yeah, what was your thoughts on his performance and him as a whole?
Yeah, I think Lukaku was never questioned whether he was a good goal scorer or not. I think everyone knew that he had goals in his locker. We saw it when he was at West Brom, when he was at Everton. My thing with him at United was always potentially his commitment to us. We came back from was it the World Cup? Yeah, I think was it the Euros? Whatever he came back from, and he bulked up, he put on some weight, and there never just seemed to be that desire to be at the top of his physical game. And we see him, the Euros now. He looks in good shape again. He's explosive. He's quick. He's running off the ball. We didn't really seem to see that at United. So I think it was one of those things. Unfortunately, he was a really good player. He just didn't fit with what we were doing, and for some reason he just dropped off. And I'm happy to see him go and smash it. Obviously, it's a nightmare because every time he has a good performance, we just get hit with the should United have sold him? It's a big mistake. He's now going off, and it's like, well, he's only doing well at the minute because we let him go. He wanted to leave. We wanted to recoup some of the money. Inter needed a striker. It worked for all parties, and he's now smashing it. He probably will be the top scorer in the Euros. I think Harry Kane might have a thing to say about that, but I wouldn't put it past him. And it's nice to see him do well, but it just wasn't one of those things that worked out at the time. And I still, if you were to ask me, if we were to go back in time and make the decision again, I'd still say it was right for him to leave, because otherwise he wouldn't be at that position that he's in now.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think he fits our system really, and I know that's easy for us to say, and we might look at that begrudgingly and think we didn't want him, didn't need him. There was a reason. You're always going to ask those questions, and really, I don't. I know there was some issues at the end, and he sort of came out and sort of went in about Luke Shaw and this sort of thing, but these things happen. It's taken out of context, and ultimately, other than Di Maria and Tevez, I wish every United player a happy future, and I'm just pleased that he's able to hit the ground running and play very well. And I think you're absolutely right. As I said earlier as well, I think he might end up top scorer, and I think Harry Kane hopefully has something to say about that. And if he ends up top scorer, then you never know, we might get somewhere this Euros. Benny, are you in agreement, mate? What are your thoughts on him? Did you see his goals yesterday?
Yeah, I saw his goals yesterday, and I said if anybody watched the first show that we did on our Euro special, I said that Romelu Lukaku would be the top goal scorer in this tournament, and it doesn't surprise me that he's bagged the brace in his first game. He's a good player. I do like Lukaku. I always have done. But I don't like it when every time he scores a goal or he has a good match at United fans, especially on social media, it's we should never have sold him. It's all his fault. It's all this. The guy didn't want to be at Manchester United. He wanted to go. This is a guy that down tools when we needed him the most. I saw it with my own eyes at Old Trafford, man. You know, I'm there every week at Old Trafford. I saw with my own eyes this guy wasn't putting the effort in. Was not putting the effort in. Especially when the going got tough. It's the first season, he was absolutely unreal. Then I think, like what's been said, he came back from either the World Cup or the Euros and he bulked up massively. And he lost that couple of yards of pace as well because he bulked up. And, you know, he's a brilliant striker, brilliant striker. But we need to move on from that now as Manchester United fans. You know, he's gone. He's done. He didn't want to be here. You know, and I don't want players staying at this football club that don't want to be here, no matter how good they are, no matter how many goals they score. And I do agree. I think the Italian league suits him. It suits him to the T. Listen, if he was to come back to the Premier League at some point, I think he would go to one of the big top six, so-called top six clubs, should they need him, should they want him, because he's a phenomenal goal scorer. You know, it just didn't work out for him at United, and I think Manchester United as a football club maybe partly to blame for that, but a lot of it is down on his shoulders as well because he down tools. That's what frustrated me about Lukaku. I was buzzing when we signed him. I thought this guy's going to take us to the absolute next level. But I don't want to be all negative about him. I want to sing his praises yesterday, you know, for dedicating his first goal to Christian Eriksen as well, running up to the camera, going, Chris, I love you, you know. I thought that was class from him. And I think, you know, listen, he's a really, really good player. But I just think United fans need to move on now, you know, and just appreciate him from a good player that he is, even though he's no longer with us.
Yeah, fantastic words, Benny. And I was going to move on to that in a moment. I didn't see Lukaku doing that, but that is a wonderful gesture. And I just want to say on behalf of everybody at All for United, you know, I'm sure everyone said it as well. I really hope for a speedy recovery. I was saying to Jamie backstage, I've always had a lot of admiration for him. One of the great footballers of Premier League. One of them at United. One of my best mates is a Spurs fan. Always speaks about him very highly, and he's an avid fan that's seen lots and lots of players week in, week out, and technically very gifted. It was an awful, horrific scenario yesterday. Really difficult to see. As a football fan, taking any unbiased out of it, it was really difficult to see, and I felt sick. I felt I could have cried, and it was awful to see. And you know what? It does concern me with Qatar, if I'm brutally honest, because, you know, whilst just quickly bring this up, Kurt, thank you, mate, from Australia for joining us. Really appreciate that. I hope you get involved with the question and get some comments in. Thank you, buddy. It's really, it was really awful to see. And as I said, Qatar, it's going to be, I know that the Heat may have had a play on it yesterday. We all know it was a cardiac arrest. It can have an effect on that too. But being in Qatar in a couple of years, when they've moved it from the summer to the winter anyway, because of the heat, it's going to be, I mean, that's dangerous. If you ask me, I mean, thousands, I don't want to be morbid, but thousands of people have, you know, lost their lives building the stadiums in that unbearable heat. And you know, you don't want that for anybody, but when you're playing a huge tournament like the World Cup, the biggest, it's a real danger, and I think it's really not been thought through very well at all, and that does really concern me. Jamie, do you have any other thoughts on that, mate? Obviously, very difficult yesterday. We were talking about it backstage, and any other words on that, buddy? You're on mute, bro.
It's because I was drinking my coffee.
It's all right. I got you back.
Cheers, man. Yeah, I think Simon Kjaer yesterday was incredible with how quickly he reacted, stopping him from swallowing his tongue and getting him ready for CPR. Like, that potentially saved his life. I don't want to speculate,
really
like that. But, he absolutely smashed that. And just what stresses me out about it, and think people can have their opinions on footballers and whether they're overpaid or not, but a lot of the time they're viewed as a commodity and a marketable commodity. And realistically, they're human beings with families, with loved ones, with their own lives. And that's why Qatar is such a joke. The fact that I don't know what went on backstage. And again, I'm not here to speculate on some dodgy backdoor dealings, but the likes of Sepp Blatter fancied a bit of money in the back pocket. We've ended up with a winter tournament in Qatar, and they don't care about footballers' well-being because they see them as this marketable commodity. that's going to earn them millions in viewership rights, and sponsorship deals, etc., etc. And people just turn around and say things like, "Oh, well, if I was getting paid that much, I'd do it." But when people are putting their bodies under that much physical strain, we've had long seasons, especially over the last 12 to 18 months, with the lockdowns, with COVID, with the seasons restarting, with extra fixtures being thrown in, to then go and play this Euros tournament now, to jump back into another full season, and then it's only 18 months until we've got this World Cup in Qatar. So I think there needs to be a lot more of an investment in players' welfare and mentality, welfare and well-being. Making sure that people aren't being put under undue physical strain just for the fact that they're getting paid, a couple of $100,000 a week for their clubs. Because we're going to see more and more stuff like this potentially. We don't know what the effects of long COVID are properly yet. So these could be players that got, tested positive for COVID at some point in the last 18 months, think that they're fine, and then they actually realise that it's had an issue on their respiratory systems. They're going to be running around in, and I don't know what, I'm not a meteorologist, so I don't know what the weather's like in Qatar around Christmas time, but I imagine it's going to be hot and it's going to be humid. But the bigwigs don't care because, again, like I said, they're a product rather than an actual human. And that's why the scenes yesterday were so upsetting. And like you, Mark, I was watching it and I was close to tears. And obviously everyone has been kicking off on Twitter about the broadcast package and the fact the BBC didn't cut to it. But the bit where it zoomed in on Eriksen's wife, that really hits home because that shows that, yes, he's a footballing superstar, whatever. He's a famous man. He gets paid to kick a ball around. But that's his wife. He's got kids. And we're here, watching him collapse on a football pitch because, he wants his club to do well. So, his country to do well. So that's my issue is as long as they're treated as products, then we're going to end up with this. And thanks, Mark Platinum Bridge.
We were talking about this the other day. You said you're going to shave it off because you were worried about the comments, but this geezer absolutely loves it. It's a fair play, and I love it. I think it's wonderful, mate. So there you go. Keep it. Yeah, great words there, mate. I absolutely agree with you. These people are human beings, and we seem to not take advantage of that. But I think they're really sort of put to the back burner and not thought about enough. And I think we were very lucky. And again, this is no disrespect to Qatar, but I think being in a first world country yesterday, things were done very efficiently, and we are very lucky that he is still alive. And that could be another issue for me. Are things going to be as efficient in Qatar? It's not even about Qatar. It's just going forward. I think that there may need to, a bit like the head injuries, that should have been done a long time ago. And we've only recently, in the last few years, have made it a really big issue. And that should have been done ages ago. And I feel that these sorts of things, when you're playing in the summer, in the heat, where you've had a long season, this has been a really long season, it's going to take a toll on your body. It scares the hell out of me. I'm 33, older than Christian Eriksen, and he's fit as a fiddle. Yeah. So I'm so pleased that he is in a better position. I genuinely hope he recovers well. Benny, any last thoughts on that, buddy? What were your take on it yesterday?
I tend to agree with what Jamie said, actually, to be fair. And I said it a long, long time ago. They should have knocked this Euros completely away. Shouldn't have had it last year. Shouldn't have had it this year. Yeah. You're asking footballers to play. You look at some of our players to play 62, 64 games a season, and then you ask them to play Euros on top of that. I think it's a little bit disrespectful from UEFA. I know that they spent a lot of money on this tournament, and there's a lot of money riding on it from sponsorship deals and from TV commercial packages and whatever. I can understand it from UEFA's point of view, but I still would have had it after the World Cup. I'd have given the players the rest this summer, give them a good rest. They've played a lot of football in the last, since Project Restart, let's put it that way. They've played a lot of football with very little break in between. And then you expect them to go and play an international tournament. Especially your bigger stars, like Christian Eriksen. He's won Serie A league title with Inter Milan this season. He's played European football this season. They've had very, very little break, and you're asking him to go out there and perform for his country in the heat, playing in the afternoon heat, in various different parts of Europe. I like the idea of having it across Europe, to be fair, but I'm not against that idea at all. But I just think about player welfare. do these big organisations like UEFA, like FIFA, like the FA, like the Premier League, do they care about their players' welfare, as much as they should? Because, what happened yesterday was so, I don't know, I was upset, man. I do a women's show at 7 o'clock, and first 10 minutes of that show, I was struggling to get my words out because my mind was on Christian Eriksen. I just couldn't believe what I witnessed, and UEFA, who I assume control the cameras, because the BBC is saying, listen, it's not, we don't control the cameras, but even though they're still at fault, should have cut straight away from it. They're quick enough to cut away from a streaker, whether a streaker's on the pitch, just cut away from it. That's, for little kids, might be watching that. That could be so stressful and so really upsetting for young viewers. I mean, my son, for example, watching it and asking me what was going on, and I just couldn't find the words to tell him. I was just shocked. Myself, I was just in shock. And as you said, Mark, it just shows you, it doesn't matter how old you are. And in the case of Fabrice Mwamba as well, because he was a young guy when it happened to him, cardiac arrest. It just shows you it could be as fit as a fiddle as an athlete. But things can still happen that's out of your control, and we should be looking into things like that. I think I'm sure they have done, people like UEFA, FIFA, and the FA, looking into things like that. How can we best prevent cardiac arrest from happening? I think my back review Foe, I think, was another one that collapsed on a football pitch.
I think
lost his life,
Daley Blind recently. He's had a few heart problems, and he collapsed for Ajax. I think he came back, but he's not fully playing, at least. I mean, that's a bit dangerous. I probably would have shut up shop and not played again. So fair play to him in a way, but obviously that could be a bit of a concern. And and this is it. It's, first and foremost about the players, but also it does have a huge impact on the outside community. And you're absolutely right. When you're watching with children, or children are watching it, it's a really scarring thing to see. And you made a good point. I was going to say earlier, the BBC, whoever's fault it was, everyone likes to point fingers. Someone needs to take ownership. They should have cut away from it straight away. And that was a little bit disappointing. But it's happening.
Mark, to be fair, sorry to put in, mate. Credit to Denmark, though, and these Danish teammates for forming that wall. Credit to the captain. I can't remember his name now. Jamie mentioned him. Credit to Kasper Schmeichel as well, because Kasper Schmeichel was the one that ran over to Christian Eriksen's wife, girlfriend, to bring her over. That Danish team need credit, and so does the Finland team as well. The Finnish, they need credit as well, because their supporters, both the Danish and Finnish supporters, are absolutely quality. For the Finland supporters to also give the medics a flag so they can cover him from the cameras and give him a bit of privacy. That was absolutely quality, and that shows what football is all about. We might be rivals, we might have different rivalries, but at the end of the day, we're one big community, one big fan base.
That all goes out the window, doesn't it? And you're right, exactly. Whilst we don't want to see those things, it was really refreshing to see the players sort of do exactly that, and that's really lovely to see. As I said, you don't want those sorts of things, but in that moment, they're all going to be panicking, and they all did the correct thing, and that was really lovely to see. And that's exactly what you want from a sport like this. This is what the Euros give you. This is what the World Cup gives you, that togetherness, and you need to see more of that. Too much animosity in the world at the moment, unfortunately, and you need to see a lot more togetherness. So spot on there, mate. A few other players someone's mentioned here: Blind, Nouri, and Fernando Torres, all good ones actually that I've forgotten about. So thank you for that. Listen, I don't want to be too morbid today, so I'm going to step away from this subject, but thanks for your points, boys. England kicking off in an hour and 40 minutes. I don't know how confident you were. I was saying backstage actually that I wasn't particularly excited for the Euros. And I think that's just international football for me at the moment, even a couple of years back. But it's all started. I've quite enjoyed it. Like that togetherness. I actually think our squad is brilliant. And I do firmly believe that the only thing that might stop us is Southgate. And I don't mean that horribly. I think he actually did very well in the World Cup. I think he does some good things. But I think he doesn't always get it right. A bit like we had the conversation about Ollie, yeah? But anyway, first game today. Croatia, Now, we'll know them very well from 2 years ago, semi-final. Yeah. How do you think we're going to set up today, Jamie? And what do you think our chances are?
Yeah, so obviously I'm the same as you. I always tell myself I'm not going to get excited for a tournament because I'm sick of being let down. And then the week before it, I get swept up in all the fever. I watch all the documentaries, and I'm sat here now in a retro Italian 90 third kit. So I think
it wasn't paying the Glazers though, was it? So
no, absolutely not. So in terms of how I think we'll set up, obviously this is the issue that we have with Southgate is. There's a way that I would set up, and obviously I know I'm not a coach or anything like that, and I'm sure there's a way that 99% of England fans would set up, and I think he'll go the opposite. I've seen stuff on Twitter today that Kieran Trippier set to start at left back. We're going to start with
I was going to bring that up
and Rice in the pivot, and it baffles me that we have Luke Shaw, who was arguably the best left back in the league, and I struggle to think of a better left back, across Europe this past season. He's been phenomenal, and yet we're going to start Kieran Trippier because what don't you want from your right back when it comes to from your left back? You'd love to see them cutting inside and having to deliver balls on their right foot. So obviously that was sarcasm. I think we're looking at we're going with Sterling, which again is baffling because Sterling's been quite poor this season. Obviously we know that he's a good player, but there's definitely people I'd start ahead of him. Grealish is apparently going to start on the bench, which is ridiculous because I think he's probably, other than Harry Kane being the best striker in the world other than Lewandowski, I think Grealish is our best player and might be the ticket that we need to potentially go far in this tournament. And I think Southgate is fully riding on the coattails of the fact that he once wore a waistcoat and took us through to the semi-finals in the easiest World Cup run that we've probably ever had. And it's becoming a bit of an issue now because we experiment in some of the friendlies that we have, in some of the pre-season, the pre-tournament stuff that we do. We have these decent lineups. Why Ward-Prowse was not taken as part of the final squad, I will never know. The fact that Ben White made it into that squad to replace Trent is ridiculous. The fact that Tyrone Mings is there ahead of people like Concert or Tomori is ridiculous. But Ward-Prowse is probably the best dead ball specialist in the world. I don't think, other than maybe Messi. And when you've got Grealish, who has won more fouls across the last 2 years than anyone else in Europe, and we've got somebody that's probably got one of the best free kick conversion rates, I don't understand why we didn't take him because it gives us a different avenue. But I don't know. I go into tournaments like this with zero expectations, like I said, and then I hear Three Lions for the first time, and I'm like, nah, we can do this. We've got I agree with you, Mark. I think our squad is fantastic. I think the only team that potentially has a better squad and squad depth than us is France.
Maybe
but
Portugal as well, but yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean France, their squad looks impeccable.
Ridiculous. But obviously Portugal again are ridiculous, and I think it's going to be interesting because if we qualify as winners of our group, we play the second place in that group, don't we? So we could potentially meet either Portugal or France in the quarterfinals. But you've got to beat, if you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best, innit? So, but yeah. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited. It's nice weather. We're going to sit outside and watch it with my mates, have a few beers, and then we'll see if I'm hyped up afterwards. But I'm sick to death of Croatia. And bad memories. Do you know what I mean? Bad memories.
I think my internet's being a bit. I think my internet is playing up a little bit, so apologies. I lost you a little bit there, but I pretty much got everything you said. Thank you. Yeah, Luke Shaw, man. I mean, if Trippier is starting on the left, I saw that. I think it was who at the back? Trippier, Walker. Walker, I agree with. I'd start him. Who else was it? Mings and
Stones.
White? Stones. Okay, so Stones I would have as well. I was a bit I was having a conversation the other day. I feel play a single pivot, 100%. Declan Rice, great player. Yeah. Don't need allow everyone to roam forward. But I wouldn't know whether to do a back four or a back five. Actually, I think you could have Stones, Mings, and Walker as centre backs, and then have Reece James on the right and Luke Shaw on the left, which would give a little bit more width as well. So we could see a back five. He did sort of play that a little bit during the World Cup, didn't he? But yeah, I mean, if Luke Shaw, Christ almighty, he does seem to have his sort of, not agenda, but his favourites, as it were. And we're going to be biased as United fans, but to be honest, I can say it to everyone in the face. Luke Shaw is probably the best left back in the world right now. Yeah. And I'll be very, very surprised to not see him, but it's Gareth. So, what would you say your score prediction would be today? I know this is a bit of a tough one. We'd love to say sort of 3-0 or whatever, but it's not going to be an easy one, is it? What would you say your score prediction, Jamie?
So I've gone with 2-1 in the Super Six, and in my little tournament prediction that I've done. But it's the opening game of an international tournament for us. You look at the fact that it took a 92nd minute Harry Kane header for us to beat Tunisia in the opening of the World Cup last time around. So the Croatia team, I'm not sure any better than they were at the last World Cup, whereas I think we are. We've added the likes of like Foden into there. Sancho's obviously come on leaps and bounds. Harry Kane is still Harry Kane and is ridiculous. Declan Rice looks like he could be the sixth for a while. So I think we've made improvements. So I can see it being a sort of reverse of the fixture. So I'm going to be positive and go 2-1 England.
I like to see that positivity, mate, and I think it'll probably be a similar result. Obviously, I'm not going to say they're going to lose. I think it might be tight. It could even be a draw. But I mean, it would be lovely to get a resounding win. I say this about United all the time, and they're quite very similar. We always seem to have the same conversation with what United at the moment to what we do with England, and that's double heartache for me, really. But yeah, I think you'll probably be about right. Ben, formations today. Jamie made a good point about Sterling. Actually, what I will say about that is I think Sterling for England is a much better player than he is for City. But I would absolutely, and I know Karthik will be chiming in at some point to start Grealish on the left, because I think he's fantastic. I think he gives you a completely different dynamic, and can play on both sides. Do a bit of a switch whoever else, and is a very creative player. And as you say, I think him and Bruno, two top most foul players in the Premier League, and that says a lot. And it just gives you that attacking flair. Benny, would you start Grealish over Sterling and the rest of your formation, mate?
Absolutely start Grealish over Sterling. I think Grealish offers so much more for me. And listen, I don't. It's not that I don't like Sterling. I think Sterling's all right, but I think he's had a bit of a poor season really for Man City. I know you said that he tends to play better for England, which is possibly you could say the same about Jordan Pickford as well. The goalkeeper. It'd be interesting to see what keeper that he'd go for, because I did say to one of my workmates the other day that had Nick Pope been fully fit, I don't think Jordan Pickford would even be considered as number one going into this tournament. I think it would have been Nick Pope. So it'd be interesting to see whether he does stick with Pickford or whether we'll give Dean Henderson a shout. I don't think Sam Johnson's quite ready yet for that sort of that pressure, I think, to be a England goalkeeper at a major tournament. But I think he'll probably stick with the ones that he can trust, like your Pickfords. It's a difficult one to try and guess what Gareth's going to do, really. He's so spoilt for options in a number of positions. It's like part of me thinks he's going to stick with the tried and tested for the first game. And a part of me thinks, he might actually just go for it a little bit, get them 3 points on the board, get a victory, and maybe just try a little something different, just to vary it up a little bit, just to maybe give Croatia something else to think about. I don't know, man. I'm just struggling to whether I can see if Rashford might start as well, because he might just go for the tried and tested. Will he go with Rashford out on the left instead of maybe even Sterling or Grealish? I've got that in my mind as well, in the back of my mind. Maybe he'll start Rashford there. Although I think Rashford, for me, will be a better option coming off the bench, especially if we're needing a goal with 15-20 to go. But it's interesting, mate. Does he play three at the back?
Really good,
all questions.
It's a really good problem to have, though. I think. We're shocked. I think whatever you look at it, I think there'll be fans all over the place. There's going to be a bit of favouritism without Sterling starting, or if Sancho doesn't start without him starting, or if Rashford doesn't start even though he's been injured. Do you know what I mean? So I think really, if we look at it I totally agree with you. But if it'd be nice to obviously look at it in a positive light, that we've got those flair players that can come on. And this is why I was saying earlier, the squad is excellent. And I just really wish that perhaps we had someone that would be able to lead that team and have a bit of that international flair and cojones, you know. So we'll have to wait and see what the lineup is today. But whatever happens, I'm in the mood now, and I will be firmly behind them and give much vocal voice as I can. Just a quick question here by Kurt. We were going to move on to Jaden next, actually, just before we sign off. A couple other comments, actually. One question. We'll answer that shortly. One matter will how it lose about 70k his week wages if he wants to stay at Man United with a Spaniard out of contract at the end of the month. One matter. Talk about outgoings first. Do you want to see him at the club next season? Maybe as an ambassador? What? Both of you in agreement with that? Would you like him to stay or?
Yeah, I'd be happy. I'm more than happy for him to stay on as an ambassador. I think he is, he's the nicest man in football, in it, and I think he's criminally underrated by a lot of people.
Technically, a brilliant player, still is. Yeah. He might have lost some pace, but he's a technically wonderful player still.
But I always think that's one of the issues with like the FIFA generations is that that's how they base their idea around footballs. But I think at one point there was probably no better playmaker in Europe than Mata. So I'd love him to stay around at the club. He loves us. We love him. Keep him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he didn't hardly play at all this season. I don't think he's obviously going to be a big part in the squad. He does offer you a different dynamic. We've seen that, when it's not quite working for us, not so much this season, but the previous season, he'd come on and give us that different dynamic. I think he's a good player to have around. Unfortunately, being the nicest man in the world doesn't win you trophies. So just to I agree with you. He's a great character, wonderful person, and obviously a huge experience in the dressing room. So I think that he is a good player to have at the club. Going back to the question that we had before, favourite players to sign. Now, obviously, I think we'll talk about Jaden shortly. I think we've spoken about this before. I feel that Jaden should probably be one down in the pecking order, and it should be a defensive midfielder. I don't know whether you guys agree with me, but are there any particular names for you that you'd like to see over the window apart from Jaden? And we'll move on to them. I'll start with you first, Benny, man.
Technology. Yeah, I'd be seriously looking at Ruben Neves, mate. I know people are favouring Declan Rice, and I don't mind Declan Rice either, but I'm just trying to think of how much money Ollie would actually get this summer. We might need to do our business smart. If we're gonna, I think Sancho we're going all out for. We're gonna majority of our money is going to go on him. So we might need to be looking at maybe an alternative to Declan Rice, because I can't see us splashing the cash that West Ham are asking for Declan Rice. I can't see us splash 90, 100 million out on him. Not a chance. So maybe looking at someone like Ruben Neves. There's been reports, I think someone said in the comments earlier on as well, there's been reports that Bruno Fernandes has been singing his praises to the Manchester United hierarchy to bring someone in like Ruben Neves. And I said before in one of the shows previously that he would be my sort of choice as an alternative to Declan Rice, somebody that between the 45 million mark, it makes sense, and he's Premier League proven. Played the Champions League from a young age for Porto. He's played European football for Wolves, albeit the Europa League. He is a UEFA Nations League winner with Portugal as well. So he's vastly experienced, even at a young age. I think he's about 24, isn't he? 24, 25, around there. So he's at the right sort of age bracket that Ollie likes to look at. Also, I would love Jack Grealish, but again, as I said, I don't think we're going to spend that much. We're going the largest chunk of the money we're going on Jadon Sancho. I'd love a Jack Grealish to come in, especially when we don't know what's happening with Paul Pogba at the minute. It's question marks over him. There's still no real concrete sort of statement around Paul Pogba, what's happening around him. Are we going to look to cash in on him? Because if he's to leave next season on a free, I'd rather we cash in him on this summer, get the cash in as much as we can for him, because if not, we're going to risk it. If he doesn't sign a new deal, we'll risk losing him for free next season. And I think we need to be a little bit smart about our business, because if we could get, I don't know what you'd be looking for Paul Pogba, depending on where he's going to end up going if he should leave. But if we recoup as much of that transfer fee as we pay for him, that 89 million quid, you could then go and to Aston Villa and go, well, there's 89 million, 90 million quid for Jack Grealish. Because we've got to remember, whoever buys Grealish, he's got 4 years of his 5-year contract left that he signed last summer. So he's going to cost a bit of money to get him out of Aston Villa as well. So, but for me, smart business, Ruben Neves. Smart business with Ruben Neves, especially if we're gonna splash out on Jadon Sancho this summer. I don't know what everybody else thinks on that one.
I quite like Ruben Neves, and I spoke about him a couple of seasons ago. But I actually, if I'm honest, I think these days I'm not quite sure that he, as a defensive midfielder, would fit the mould just. But I agree that if we were going to do something smart that wouldn't cost us as much, Declan Rice fee, then he would certainly be a great option. Obviously, if Bruno is giving us some singing our praises and earning brownie points there, then fantastic. But I think it would be a smart option. Not quite sure if it would be the perfect option, but sometimes those cheaper ones can surprise you. With regards to Pogba, obviously you hit on that as well. I think United have opened talks with him. I think obviously we're running a huge risk of losing him next summer. But I don't think he's going to go anywhere this summer. And
I hope he stays, mate. I hope he stays.
Yeah.
I love Paul Pogba, but I'm just thinking out loud. If he was wanting to leave, I hope he just makes desires felt this summer. That listen, boys, I've decided I've had a great Euro. Decided I want to leave. I want a new challenge. Then we can get that cash in for him. Because if he decides next summer and shits on us and leaves for a free, then I'll be very, very disappointed. But I'm hoping he'll sign a new deal because Paul Pogba in our midfield with Bruno and Sancho and maybe a Neves or a Rice, whoever it may be. Oh my God, man! But we'll go in place.
I'm going to stick on the Paul Pogba point. Actually, you made a really good point. He was fantastic the other day for France, and I know we've seen a lot more of him this year. But Jamie, I'll ask you. Kante or whoever the DM is next to him really allows him to express himself and be the player that he, it sounds like a broken record because we said this years ago, get a DM in, you get someone like Kante in or someone like that, then you're going to see a lot more of him. And we still haven't done that. We've been crying out for that player. But that's the sort of Paul Pogba. The reason why he has such a good Euros and World Cup is because of the players around him and because they allow him to express himself. And then it's always that common theme of he doesn't ever do it for Man United, but it's not his fault. Surely we can look at that and know that it's the club not getting the players in that's allowing him to become the player that we know that he can be. What do you think about that, Jamie?
Yeah, absolutely agree. One of the things I was most gutted about with like Tuchel coming into Chelsea and then winning the Champions League was that there were rumours that Kante was unhappy at Chelsea, and I would have thrown every penny at Chelsea to bring him in, because I rate him so highly. People talk about how Makelele created that role, but if he did, then it's Kante that sort of defined that and gone above and beyond. Like he's ridiculous. So I agree that the issue that we have is that when we either play with a double pivot with Pogba in there, so on the left-hand side next to sort of McTominay or Fred or Matic or whoever it is, there's still a lot of emphasis on him to do some of the defensive work. Now, I know he's had his best ever sort of club season whilst he was at us, and I know people talk about Juventus Pogba a lot. But that midfield, again, was perfect for him with Marquisio sort of in the six, Pirlo next to him, and then Pogba just with free reign to sort of do whatever he wants. So for me, that's the priority. So again, I rate Ruben Neves as a midfielder, and I've been a fan of him for years. I think he's sort of dropped off a little bit. He seems to have stopped dictating the tempo of games, and his main sort of party trick at the minute is occasionally scoring screamers from the edge of the box against us when we don't mark him on a corner. I'd be massively looking at somebody to fill in that sixth position. And as much as I'd like Declan Rice, again, I agree with Benny that I think we're going to be priced out of that. I think he's a big Chelsea boy, so he'll be looking to move to there. But whether that's after they after they sell Kante, whatever, I don't know. I rate Frank Kessie. I think he was really good against us. He was a threat, and he seems to shield the back four quite well as well. He seems to have that defensive temperament about him. If money was no issue, though, I'd be going all in for Wilfred Ndidi. Like, I think other than Kante, Ndidi's probably the best six in the Premier League. if not, Europe as well, because he's just fantastic. But Leicester would have our pants down and would be spitting all over us, because if they took 85 million off us for Harry Maguire, we just know that they're going to be taking 85 to 100 million for Ndidi as well. And again, I agree when we talk about Pogba. If he commits his future to us, fantastic, because I absolutely adore the boy. I think he's got ridiculous bags of talent. Like, he's probably one of the most naturally gifted footballers I think I've ever seen. He has everything that you need to sort of be successful. But if he does leave, then again, I'd throw 100 million at Aston Villa and bring in Jack Grealish, because I love Jack Grealish when he plays in that sort of left-hand side of midfield. I know people like him on the wing and stuff like that, but for me, I like watching him when he has some of the play ahead of him as well. We look at the game against Romania when it was Shaw, Grealish and Rashford on that left-hand side, and I'm not going to lie, like, I was sat there thinking, if that was United's left-hand side, like, that would be ridiculous.
That would be the dream, wouldn't it?
Exactly. So if Pogba leaves, I think we need to throw all the money we can at Grealish and try and bring him in. If he stays, brilliant. Finally just buy a 6. And I don't mean, don't go and buy geriatric Nemanja Matic and get one good season out of him. Buy somebody that we know is going to stay there. And that's the only reason why I'd see us throwing a lot of money at West Ham for Declan Rice, because he's 23? Something like that.
He's 23. I think
he's young. He's captain material. Do you know what I mean? He screens well. He has good intelligence. He has good positional awareness. We also might be able to use Lingard as some form of make weight in any deal that we did. So that could be quite shrewd. But yeah, it would be Ndidi for me. But I hate dealing with Leicester because they're a perfectly run club. I'm jealous of how they're run. And if I wasn't a Manchester boy born and bred, I'd be supporting Leicester.
I've said this before, actually. I have a lot of respect for them. I think it's very unfortunate, and I was a little bit disappointed for them they didn't get top 4. I think they're a very well-run club. They've got some very good players. I actually rate Brendan Rodgers. I think he's a good manager, and they've got a good set of players. And Ndidi would probably be one of my first choices. I think Kessie was a great one, actually. That I totally forgot about. Didn't really know much about him before playing AC, but he was stalwart, really creative as well. And whenever Matic plays now, he's our most creative DM, but just hasn't got the legs for it. But Kessie would be a great replacement for him, really. My big one that I've spoken about many, many times is Zakaria from Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Yeah.
He is brilliant. He's got the stature similar to Pogba. Very strong, very good in front of the back 4, and is also a very good passer of the ball as well. And you know what? I was told this from another mate on another channel. So Ben will kill me for this, but I've held firm with that. Watched a lot of him since then, and I absolutely agree with it. I think he'd be a good one too. But look, there's lots of them out there. I think DMs really we're not really short of in the world. I think a lot of obviously teams play that kind of formation now, even double pivots. So I don't think we're short on those sorts of players. So I think if United are clever and shrewd, they can get a decent one in for hopefully not too much money.
That's two things that we're not, though, unfortunately. And
you know what, mate? I was just trying to be positive about United. You're absolutely spot on. You're absolutely spot on. Right, listen, boys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Great to see your faces, and great to have you on again. Love you both very much, and thanks for coming on. It's been great. I'm just going to ask a question real quick this week. As I mentioned, I think you might have lost me a little bit. As I mentioned, you can only be in it once. So anyone else that might have commented last week, that was your first go. You can't change it. We've got it all written down. At least I hope Ben has. And but the question is, who do you think is going to win the Euros? Now, I don't want this in the live chat. I want this in the comments after the show. Get your comments in afterwards. I want to know exactly who you think is going to win. And as I say, your first answer that we obviously will record from that will be your only answer, and you can't change it. Listen, boys, enjoy the game this afternoon. Let's hope we can come away happy and reconvene on the next daily show happy again. Good to see everyone in the comments. Thanks for coming in again today. A lot of people on Facebook and Twitter. Not now, but come over to YouTube and get your comments in next time. It'd be great to have your new faces, and even the ones that are always here. Jarvis, thanks for appearing again, mate. Fred, good to see you. Better late than never, and all the rest. So anyway, listen, enjoy the game today. Thanks, boys, and I'll see you all very soon.